Welcome back to the channel, you guys. This week we are talking optics, specifically this one, the LP-1, better known as the Promethean, from our friends over at Lead & Steel. If you guys aren't familiar with Lead & Steel, great company based just to the south of us. They're down in Ohio. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, they released to the market for pre-order their first optic, which was their Promethean rifle optic, or better known as just the LP-1. So as you guys know, there's a lot of companies out there trying to break into the optic space, and it's very difficult, I'll say, to produce a quality optic that's going to stand up to the demands of duty use, as well as the training demands that many of us have and expect of quality optics out there on the marketplace today. I think with what Lead & Steel's doing, they knocked it out of the park. There's been several other tests, drop testing, things like that from other personalities, other influencers, other companies out there to really speak to the durability and the quality construction behind the Promethean and what it brings to the marketplace. But they made some updates, they made some changes. We're going to talk about what those are, what those look like. So let's get into it. Okay, so before we get into the changes, let's talk about the LP-1 as it was released about a year and a half ago. So the Gen 1 version is a large window red dot that offers a protective hood over the top that you guys can see, made out of 7075 aircraft grade aluminum. Now, we actually had Ahmad, the owner of Lead & Steel, on the podcast a while ago, and he was able to speak to a lot of the engineering and design choices they made. A sacrificial hood, like some of the other large body optics out on the market, is a really great idea, because then that sacrificial hood will help to absorb the impact and not the actual optic body itself, because once you start to get impacts to that optic body, that's when you start to see some failures, some compromises to the seal around the glass for the optic, or cracks and breakages to the glass itself. Now, this looks similar to some other offerings out there on the market. This is a red dot, it's not holographic, and as such, you will notice there's that colored film across the front pane of glass, which is necessary for how red dot technology functions. So you have an emitter in the back that will shoot that red dot up, and it will shoot backwards to the eye of the user. That's how red dots work. Now, there's other technology on the market, right? Prisms, holographic sights from other companies that work a little bit differently. And one of the knocks on red dots is that typically you do get a little bit of a weird reflection, at least when you're talking about a camouflage perspective, because of some of that film. And then also, as you look through it, there is at times some blue hue to the glass. In my opinion, I don't really get a whole lot of the blue hueing to the glass when I look through the LP-1. I think they did a fantastic job of mitigating that in whatever magical wizard ways they were able to do that. I think the glass here is very, very clear, and I have really, really enjoyed using this optic. I ran it for about 6 months. Took it through a CQB course with the folks over at Orion Training Group. I've had zero problems with this. Very robust mounting solution, locks up to the pick rail very, very nicely, and it's adjustable. So you're not gonna be fighting with this, getting multiple tools out, trying to shim your rail, some things that I've heard people have to do with maybe some other offerings on the market. And it's actually adjustable. So if your upper receiver rail or your riser is a little bit out of spec or a little bit thinner, I know some of the offerings in the market, they're a little bit narrower than what 1913 spec truly is. You can actually just press in on the latch and tighten this locking nut on the other side to kind of shrink that down and make sure you get a great fitment on your pick rail. Controls, really easy. 2 buttons on the side here. You can actually press both of them at the same time. That's going to go ahead and help you switch between the 3 reticles that come standard on the LP-1. So that's the center dot. That's the center dot with the 64 MOA crosshair style reticle, and then just that outer 64 MOA ring, depending on your need cases. And you can also turn the brightness up and down. If you hold down the up button, that's what powers it off. If you press it one time, that's what turns it on. And this whole unit is powered by a single CR123 battery, which is great because so many of our optics, including night vision optics, lasers, flashlights, run off of the 123. So being able to power it off of a single battery like that is shared between many of your different platforms, many of your different tools, means that you have to carry less batteries or just more batteries, but all of the same kind, which is fantastic. And we really, really like that. So looking at something like this, you might say, all right, that sounds like a pretty complete package. How do we improve on that? Well, let's talk about the Gen 2 version of the LP-1 Promethean. So this is the Gen 2 LP-1 that the folks at Lead and Steel were kind enough to send over. Full disclosure, you guys, I did not pay for either of these. Both of these have been sent out to me. I was very excited to get my hands on this as there were some very interesting and exciting changes made to the overall unit. I will say the packaging is fairly plain. It's just a cardboard box with a nice foam insert. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, you know, some other companies do some nicer stuff. And that's true. But by saving on the packaging, that saves you money as the consumer, and I'm down with that because I don't need a mini Pelican for every one of my optics. I only have so many Allen keys I need to hide in those boxes and things like that. So fairly plain cardboard box here. Does let you know 70-75 aluminum housing, does let you know that it's got their Aura Wake system, which we'll get to in a second, and that it's got Japanese glass. And if you guys are familiar at all with optics and optic quality, you know that the Japanese make some outstanding glass and really some of the clearest stuff that you're going to see on optics in the market today. So I think for the price point, those are three very attractive options to keep in mind. So now when we open the box here, you do get, and I like the company just starting to do this, you do get this little paper tab with a QR code on it at the bottom to get you to the user guide, because I have a full drawer of user guides from optic companies, laser companies, flashlight companies, the list goes on, right? And I hardly ever use them. So to save on paper and printing, which again is a cost that does factor into the overall cost that you're going to pay as a consumer, this single piece of paper is much, much cheaper to print and provide than an entire booklet with instructions. So if you do need it, you can go ahead and scan the QR code, read up on it, or like most of us do, never look at the user manual and figure it out by trial and error. And if you ever need to go back to it, it's available online. They also include, if I can get it out here, the struggle is real. There we go. They do include a single CR123 with the Lead and Steel logo branded on it. They include a microfiber cloth here. These are great to have and save. Keep them on your kit, keep them in your range bags. Guys, optics get dirty and they occlude your vision. So when you're shooting, it's always good to have something like this. It's not like a necessary thing, and I get it, you know, optics get dirty in the field, but it's always nice to have it. And I appreciate that they include it here. There's also this tool that they include. So it has a larger flathead on one side and a smaller on the other. And basically what this is going to allow you to do is to open the battery compartment with a tool if necessary. Maybe if you're a little bit older and your dexterous skills and strength are not what they once were, you got a tool for it. And if you need a tool, because you don't have a multi-tool, to make windage and elevation adjustments, that's what the small side is for. And I like that they cut a hole in it too, so you can run some 550 through there. You can wear it as a necklace or tie it to your kit or whatever have you. And honestly, guys, if you have one tool, you have them all. Windage and elevation adjustments are not that big of a deal from one company to the next. So having something like this included is just a nice little perk to the overall package. Now, let's get into the optic itself. Now, at a side-by-side comparison, these are pretty similar. We do have the same great locking mount here, and it is adjustable just as before, where you can push through and tighten down the nut on the other side to help make it smaller as you need to. So whether your mount is something that's in spec or out of spec, or it's a riser or whatever have you, you're going to be able to adjust to that just fine. Same large generous window, same 70-75 construction, and same removable optic hood here to protect the overall optic body. What they did add on the front here is this identification grid, very similar to what we see on like PMags and things, where you can number this, you can initial it so people can understand, hey, which optic this is, or it's yours, or whatever may have you. So if you're an armorer for a department or an agency or a team, this is really helpful, because then instead of just randomly writing stuff all over the optic, you have an identification marker there, which can be helpful if that's something that you guys utilize for tracking and inventory purposes. Going on, we do see a couple interesting things here where there are now some pieces of material removed between the first generation over here and the second generation. Some material removed here on the bottom, and then on the back of the unit itself. And truly, all that really does is serve to provide additional weight savings. We still have a QR code that is printed on the bottom, so you can scan and access the user guide that way, which is always helpful, especially if you're trying to troubleshoot items at the range or things like that. The same windage and elevation turret locations on this optic. The overall footprint, and we'll get a top down on this so you guys can see it. So this being the Gen 2 and this being the Gen 1. The Gen 2 is just a hair shorter overall footprint. I would say at most 1/8 of an inch shorter front to back. But when we look at optic height, this one is actually, I would say, maybe like a 1/16 of an inch, or probably even less, taller. And why that's important is one of the pieces of feedback that I'm sure that Lead and Steel got, and I heard from a few folks in the community, was that the overall height was just a hair off from that lower 1/3 height that guys are really, really fond of. And a lot of zeroing information exists out there for the lower 1/3 optic height. So for things like understanding your holds, understanding your zero, but also alignment with flip up magnifiers and other devices like thermals and things like that, it's a must that that height be correct. So while I personally didn't notice that as a big impact on the Gen 1 with my EOTech 3X magnifier, I think that it's great that they took that input and took that feedback and applied it to the next generation. Now, additionally, talking about what they added, we mentioned the Japanese glass, but also the Aura-Wake system. So one of the things that people really like to ask about for optics is shake-awake functionality. Now, not everybody likes it. Okay, a lot of people want their optic on and they want to know the ready status of their firearm when they pick it up. So they want to know that this thing is always on, and that's totally possible if that's the way you want to do it. This thing has a 30,000 hour battery life quote. So if you're running it, as long as you're not running it on max power or something, just like many other optics out there from many other companies, right? The time quote is usually somewhere around one of the middle settings, 30,000 hours, which is in line with many of the leading competitors and models and companies out there in the optics industry. But it has their Aura-Wake. What that means is if you have this set to the center dot with their 64 MOA outer ring, that crosshair style reticle that many of us are a fan of, when this optic is at rest, that outer ring will actually shut off, leaving only the center dot on completely. And then when you go ahead and move the firearm and it shakes awake, then that outer ring will restore. What this does is during storage, it's gonna make sure that A, you have the confidence of having that dot on all the time, but also B, it's gonna save on some battery life so that you can further extend the longevity of this device. Maybe if you are running it on a little bit higher of a power setting, maybe if you're trying to beat that 30,000 hour battery quote, I don't know. It's something that people ask for, and I think it's a very unique take on a shake awake function, because I've had optics, I do have optics with a shake awake function, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes you really got to give them a good shake to have them come back to life, so to speak. So if this is a home defense gun, a duty gun, or something where it's not seeing continuous and repeated use on a very regular basis, you want to make sure that if that shake awake were to fail, you still have that center dot on, and it's not going to crush your battery life, and you're ready to pick this up and go to work. Now, in terms of what I don't like about the optic, it is a little bit heavy. I mean, look at it, guys. I mean, this feels a little bit lighter, maybe, but it's kind of a brick of an optic, which is if you're somebody who's looking into very lightweight setups. And if I got a couple of friends who are like that, where they run very tiny micro dots on skeletonized risers and very light with everything they do, maybe this isn't the optic for you. However, if you're like me, you go to the gym, heavy optics don't matter as much as long as they're going to be durable and reliable. And I have zeroed this optic one time and never had to go back and make an adjustment. I expect that this will be much the same, as the internals to this really haven't changed a whole lot short of the addition of that Aura-Wake, and short of just removing a little bit of material from the side of the hood here compared to the Gen 1. with both the identification matrix and this little reduction here on the side of the hood, a little bit of material reduced around the screw holes, and then obviously what we talked about, removing some material from the bottom of the housing itself. Still a chunky optic, but very, very durable, very, very reliable. Yes, it does still have that red film across the front, as we talked about a moment ago. That's required for red dot technology. You're going to be very, very hard pressed to find an optic on the market that doesn't have that with their front glass for a red dot. And in fact, I don't believe it exists. If your optic doesn't have that, then it's not a red dot. It's probably holographic or a prism or some other style of dot that doesn't utilize red dot technology. And if that's a game breaker for you, then utilize one of those other options. This is probably not the best choice for you. But I think this is a tremendous offering to the market, and I think that it's a very competitive price point for those of us that are looking for something duty rated and want a large window, especially because there's really only one large window provider out there. We've seen a couple of them come and go, and a couple of those companies, either you can't find them anymore, they're super, super expensive, or it's not actually a red dot, it's holographic. So for a red dot optic that runs off a single CR123, this is a great, great option. One of the things that I like that I'll mention here as well is as you open the battery compartment, because I have a smooth brain.
Smooth brain. No ridges or lumps or valleys or bumps. All ideas slide right off, like a water slide.
And I forget this all the time. As you open this battery compartment, on the inside is actually printed with a negative symbol. So you can take your included battery here and you can figure out by looking at it which one's the positive and which one's the negative, and know right off the bat which way you insert that. It's a small thing, you guys, but it makes a difference. Again, especially for those of us like me with smooth reptile brains that just ever can't figure it out and got to flip that battery back and forth a few times and then get worried that it might be broken or something because it doesn't turn on immediately, only to find out, nope, we're just silly gooses that don't know how to insert a battery. But this is the Promethean LP-1. This is their Gen 2 version, or version 2. I think it's a tremendous option out there on the market. I think if you guys are looking for something robust, durable, this is a tremendous consideration for you. I really, really like it. Yeah, it's a little bit ugly. Yeah, it's heavy. No, it's not holographic. So yes, parallax considerations are something you're gonna have to just build into your shooting. But for all but one optic on the market, you're pretty much gonna have to be aware of that regardless. So great, great option, you guys. Thank you to Lead and Steel for sending this out to me. I'm really excited to get some time behind this one. If you guys are interested in this, you can head on over to leadandsteel.co. That is their website. And as always, you guys, if you found this information useful or helpful or handy or maybe just entertaining, make sure you guys hit that notification bell, hit the subscribe button, make sure you like this video. All of that stuff serves to help drive the algorithm to keep the channel growing so you can bring more videos like this, more information to you guys. And speaking of information, if you guys have questions on this optic, if there's something I wasn't able to get into in this discussion here, please drop it in the comment section below. Would love to help you guys out, and would love to help out Lead and Steel by getting more people running their products, because I believe this is a really great red dot. I think it's a really, really great introduction to the market. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, checking this video out. That's all I got, and we'll catch you on the next one.